I remember thinking of it in the past tense as something that had occurred in the 60s, like something that Gloria Steinem had worked towards. I didn't at that time recognize that this was an ongoing struggle.
To me, it's this kind of abstract thought, and it was like what I heard in mainstream media. It wasn't until I came out as trans and started transitioning that I kind of got into more feminism.
The first time I really engaged with feminism was I read the book, The Purity Myth. I got really angry and excited and activist-y about something that my parents weren't into. I really understood, that the world was stacked against me.
Feminism is a belief that people of all genders have the right to be treated equitably, to have equitable access to opportunity, social, political, economic.
I think that feminism is really, really, really complicated, and it's really nuanced and it's really messy. And you can't talk about gender without talking about race and class and the gender binary and ableism and sex work and capitalism and colonialism. You just cannot talk about one of those things without talking about the rest of them.
But it's like an uncomfortable pair of pants. That's how I've always felt about feminism. It's just a thing that was uncomfortable. Okay, I'll wear it, but I don't really feel comfortable within it.
I know people who don't ID as a feminist for various reasons because they find some things problematic about feminism, but they're also out there doing really good work for people, trying to make things better.
A lot of the feminists that I know are just people who will speak up when they notice somebody perpetuating a harmful attitude about women.
Women are really encouraged to be like, I am a feminist! And we had those t-shirts that are like, this is what a feminist looks like. We're putting Benedict Cumberbatch in them and Emma Watson. I think it's important to have that, but I also think that it's important to recognize that it is a journey.
Feminism as a process is, for me, more important than feminism as a politic. And I've seen a lot of people declare themselves feminist, and I'm like, no, you're not.
When I came out as trans, and I'm like, okay, I'm a woman, I should look into this more and understand this better. But there's also a lot of animosity towards trans women from feminists, and so there's this kind of knee-jerk reaction where I'm like, ooh.
A lot of times white feminism seems like a movement for white women to be able to oppress everybody equally. It's for white women to be on the same level as white men, whereas the rest of us kind of get left behind.
It's very, very easy to talk about the ways in which a system does not benefit you without talking about the ways in which it does. It's a kind of feminism that wants to change a certain amount, but not too much.
It has, throughout its history, including right now, been primarily a movement about the concerns of middle class, upper middle class white women. Women who are able-bodied, women who are cisgender, women who are straight.
Feminism as this concept that's going to liberate all people is essentially kind of excluding people by saying, oh, well, you don't matter, you're not relevant, or, they're working with kind of language that is oppressive because they're supporting a binary, and I don't believe gender is a binary.
There are a lot of people who constantly have to get called out, even when you think of horrible human beings like Lena Dunham and Caitlin Moran. They're people who absolutely don't get it and refuse to get it and whatever. And it's that kind of white privilege that they perpetuate, which is very irksome.
A movement isn't going to achieve anything if it's only raising up the people who are already close to the top.
If we imagine that being in this world and living the life that we do is a video game, every stage that we get to where we add a variable like, are you a woman? Are you a woman of color? Are you genderqueer? Are you working or playing in a sector that is predominantly male? Each of those stages, it has more hurdles than the other. If oppression is intersectional, feminism needs to be, and I don't think that's as clear as it needs to be.
Intersectional feminism should be about equality for all people and understanding that some of us have privileges, some of us have oppressions, and really we all do. And understanding that you have to think about these things and talk about these things and really listen to each other.
I'm a young middle-class white girl, and so I'm allowed opportunities to be places and also opportunities to say things without backlash that other people would experience. We have to be so much better at listening to what other women want. If a trans woman says, that's not okay, you need to be like, okay, that's not okay.
I think that social media allows us to listen in a way that can help the movement to get better at being inclusive.
It's leveling the playing field of who can speak out. It's also providing a platform to people who were traditionally denied. That's what's changed, I think, from how I understood feminism initially as this omnipresent set of values that just said we need to be equal, we need to be equal to men.
I think that young women are buying into feminism, you know, a very 2D version of feminism, which is okay. Everyone has to start somewhere, and you know, that's definitely where I started in lots of ways.
When you think that talking about the equality and equity of an entire 50-something% of the world's population that you don't want to talk about their issues, that kind of sounds like a hate crime to me.
I'm not interested in critiquing Beyoncé as a feminist. I'm not interested in like the Emma Watson speech. Like, I think it's great, and it's really great that she connected to a lot of people. There was also a lot missing from that speech, right?
I think the circular arguments around mainstream media covering feminism by constantly asking, is feminism real or necessary? It's a way of avoiding saying, you know what, we've been doing this wrong, we've been unfair, and there were places where we could have done better, but we chose not to. That's a difficult thing for people to admit.
I mean, I think a lot of what's sort of pushing a big change now around like women in the workplace, for example, is the stuff that's happening with Jihan Ghomeshi, and it's awful. But there's also like over 1,000 missing and murdered Indigenous women, and like, why wasn't that a tipping point too?
I do think that we're in an exciting time where people are a little bit more receptive to ideas about how we can make all of this better.
This is like the start of something, and that's really, really, really exciting.
The first thing that needs to change is very, very fundamental. I don't think it's tokenism. I don't think it has to come with policies around how many women there need to be in committees. I think it needs to come from a fundamental shift of believing women. I think we need to stop asking them to prove that this is an issue. If half your population is saying something is a problem, believe them. That's the first step, because once you believe them, you will hear them. And when you hear them, you will hear from them how things can be better.